Hello, Brian. It is yet another episode of the Visionary Corner. I love that you don't take yourself so seriously, and everyone got to see that today. How are you?
No, I'm very well. I'm just starting my 2 weeks off. So yeah, like how when you go on holiday, like those last few days, like it makes you really realize how much you need the holiday. Like everything compounds. So yeah, I'm tired, but today was technically supposed to be off, but we were with the whole team in Johannesburg doing a face-to-face. That was kind of nice. But now I'm officially off.
Oh, that is such a good segue into what we were going to speak about today, which is burnout. Brian, I know you know all about this. So, can we tell people about your experience with burnout and how you avoid it?
So I think kind of you can seldom avoid burnout. I mean, it would take a very, very clever practice and set of rituals to avoid it completely. So in sport, when you look at most sports, the process of, like, say, a sports team, like a soccer team or a rugby team, or they train extensively in order to perform at peak. I mean, nowadays they're insane the way they actually push sports people, because they play a lot. But in most cases, you'll play maybe once a week for a very extended tournaments now that can last up to 6 months. So let's just say you're playing once a week for 2 hours, 2 to 2.5 hours, because you sometimes substitute it, so a football player will be on the pitch for somewhere in the region of 2 hours once a week. In those 2 hours once a week, they need to perform at a peak. Every portion of the rest of that week, every hour from that day of the game to the next game is planned for recovery and preparation. Now, it's a whole alignment, and I don't actually know the books. There's some incredible books about this written by sports psychologists and specialists around burnout and work. So we obviously not, as business owners or as people getting through life, we're not necessarily as physically involved as a professional sports person would be. So in their case, they do everything from ice baths afterwards to recover their bodies, to massages, to, light training, harder training, all types of stuff. And they have a whole specialist team looking after them. But we have the same thing. And, in our company, well, I don't know if we do it. I know we're doing one of the leadership teams where we have an energy chart, not the normal one that we use in Wealth Dynamics, in Contribution Compass, but one that talks about out of 4 cycles of energy: peak performance, recovery, burnout, and survival mode. These are like 4 primary areas, and they all have different emotions associated with them. And so people bounce between these 4 areas. And it's actually funny, because when you look at it in that context, where most people get stuck is survival mode. So, and that comes after burnout. Like, that comes to a place where you do the minimum in order to survive, because you're so tired, you're so worn out. And you've got to understand that the context of burnout it differs with different people. It differs with the level of stress you've got. It differs with, parents of young children, for instance, who also work in full time or running a business. There's numerous things. Your health will play a major role in how you can sustain yourself, but never, ever think that you don't burn out. It's almost become such a way of life that people think it's okay. The problem is that people will operate at as much as 40% less efficiency in a state of burnout or survival. Their ability to make decisions is diminished by over 50%. They will often become indecisive. They will procrastinate. And I say they, but this is us. And so the truth is, you have to be very aware of this. And in our company, we make it a strict policy for most of our team. I think all of our team are now told every 3 months. I know our senior team are told every 3 months they have to take 2 weeks off. Today is my first day of my 2 weeks. And I cheated already because I went and saw the whole team up in Johannesburg. But, I'm the thing about recovery and avoiding the burnout. And let me take 2 steps backwards. If you had incredible discipline, if you could go home and actually switch off completely from your work, if you went and did yoga when you got home, or breath work, calmed yourself down, put yourself into the state of being a husband, a father, a companion, or just somebody that wants to switch off, and actually could do that, and you did that consistently, and then you took at least a day on the weekend where you gave yourself permission to completely switch off, and you had the ability not to think about work. It's a very rare thing to achieve this, but it's achieved through incredible self-focus, mental health practices. It's not likely that most people can pull that off, right? Too much disturbance of the way that we live our lives. But that's how it should be. Then you wouldn't need regular breaks to recharge. Much like the sports person, you'll be doing a cycle of recovery and recharge and performance and into peak performance on a continuous basis, week after week. But for most of us, that's just impractical. It's not possible. So we then need to actually schedule, in our case, every 3 months, minimum 2 weeks. And a study showed that I looked up years ago, I think it was in Microsoft, Bill Gates was talking about it, is that it took a week to stop thinking about work and therefore another week to actually recover. However, they used to have a policy in Microsoft that you were dead to the company. That sounds terrible. I mean, but I actually get it. And we're instilling it in our own business. You don't exist to the company for those 2 weeks. And if you can't develop your company or your organization so that it can manage without that person for those 2 weeks, then you already got a problem, because think about the level of inefficiency that you lose. If you give me 2 weeks every 3 months and I can keep my efficiency around 80 to 90% versus dropping down to 60%, that difference is phenomenal in terms of productivity, outcome, decisions, and the way things move forward. So in our case, take 2 weeks off, do not stay at home. So I live in Cape Town, I'm in Johannesburg now. Tomorrow we go drive to a game farm for 3 days. Then we go to a resort called Sun City. Then I'm hanging out in Joburg with some of my friends for a few days. Then I'm off to the what do we call it? The garden route that we call it in the Western Cape. This beautiful place. I'm going to Knysna Wilderness. And I strategically planned it like that to avoid being at home. And even though, I live a pretty cool lifestyle at home, on the beach and what have you, it's still the place that I work. It's still the place that I process a lot of the challenges in the work. So by being out there, and I've got friends on every channel. My girlfriend's with me a lot of the time, but Anna can't be with some of the time. So I make sure that every night I'm with friends. I'm not allowing myself to go into a work mode because I have to switch off and recharge. And it's so critical. So yeah, guys, I mean, there's a lot of studies on this. I don't really care about how much you want to try and figure it out. I want you to realize that your inability to give yourself proper breaks has a much more detrimental impact on your business or life than the time and the ability to actually go and switch off on a regular basis. And there's no natural thing about 2 days on a weekend and all this kind of crap that we have in society that actually does it effectively for us. So you have to figure out what works for you, research it. If you own a business, instill it as part of the culture, part of the process of your business. Our team leads actually sit with our members of team and say, where you're going to go, what you're going to do. We're very conscious of who has kids, who it's more difficult to travel. Others that can travel, we encourage them to move, do anything to try and recharge, because those 2 weeks that they're not available are made up tenfold by keeping them productive and in a good space and not going into survival mode. So we actually check in weekly now with our leadership as to where they feel they are in that chart. And it's a very powerful strategic tool to utilize, but it's very powerful for yourself as well, just in terms of your health, your mental health, your physical health. So yeah, it's very important to us. So I'm literally about to start. This is not real, by the way. If you think your little things, I always worry like things are going to crawl into my head. It's just plastic, but it looks kind of cool,
Oh my goodness. And I think we caught you at the perfect time because, talking about burnout, I think so many people, as you said in the beginning, don't even know they're functioning in that survival mode because they become so used to being suboptimal that they're like, there's a life outside of this.
Yeah, we think that you see, because instinctively we actually taught to survive. Like we're taught to be ordinary, we're taught to work in a context, in a construct that we think is normal when it's not. And so, what we do, so Stephen Covey, who wrote The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, was like one of my favorite books. And I love Stephen, the late Stephen Covey passed away quite a while ago. He spoke about the four quadrants of time. And he spoke about, he called it urgency dependency or urgency addiction. So you had if you drew a square and you put 2 lines through the middle, so you had four squares in the square. And the top left square was urgent and important. And the top right square was important but not urgent. The bottom left square was urgent but not important. And the bottom right square was neither urgent nor important. And he said, you go and look at your life and how you distribute your time and the tasks that you do. And the crazy thing, when you ask people, what is the most important square or squares, they will go the two on the left, or they will go the two on the top, or they'll go, but they will think that urgent and important is the most important square, because we are so used to having like panic and stress, like we've got to get something done urgently. When the truth is, when we start to list the activities and the processes that are found in these different areas, we find that the important and not urgent is by far the most important square, okay? Because this is where you do prevention, growth, connection, all the things that are critical to taking your life, your business further in a non-pressured environment. But of course, the urgency always gets in the way, to such an extent that most people end up doing a whole lot of stuff that's urgent, but it's not even important. I used to joke, like, people get emails, it was the wrong email address, but they still jumped up and went and did something because the email said they needed something, and they realized there was some other company that somehow sent them the email to the wrong place. We are addicted to urgency. You have so many people, Candice, your friends say it, you've even probably heard yourself say it, like, oh, I like that pressure. I love it when that pressure's on and I have to get it done in a short period of time. And like, that's when I'm most productive. But it's not healthy. You're literally releasing all types of chemicals in your body that's actually not healthy. And as you get older, you're going to start realizing this. The truth is, no, it's not about that. Now, that last square, which is neither urgent nor important, we call it the square, the square of escape, or the quadrant of escape. And we end up having to go and escape, whether that's, now I'm going to use examples that I use, so I'm not trying to, judge anyone in this basis, right? But when we have to go and watch TV programs at night in order to try and switch off, and we're like, oh my goodness, AGT's on, or Days of Other People's Lives, as Robin Banks will call it, or, or like whatever, my favorite TV programs on. And especially when it becomes more important than everything else, like, I just got to watch my TV program. And like, you've got to understand that's escapism, and I'm not in this crazy world. I understand we have to escape. You see, one of the quadrants, one of the things in important but not urgent is recovery or recreation, doing things that, that actually recharge you. But we're so busy in the addiction that we have to run to escape all the time. And so we look at meaningless things, and people take them so seriously. Like now we've got this dreadful thing happening in the world with the war in the Ukraine, but people are obsessed with it, even though they live in Africa, or live like a million miles away. Because another thing that Stephen used to talk about, Stephen Covey, is we get stuck in the circle of concern, not the circle of influence. Circle of concern is where we're concerned about everything else, but we have no influence over it. And we don't spend enough time in the circle of influence where we actually have influence. So we really, firstly, we just got to stop beating ourselves up and realize this is the crazy society and world we live in. It's out of balance, and therefore we're obviously out of balance. But then we got to turn around and say, what brings us into the best space where we can perform at the best level, feel at the best level, because there's a direct relation between what you feel in and how you perform in. And just find, you see, work-life balance is not about how much time you spend at work and how much time you not spend at work. Work-life balance is about managing your energy, your emotions, your state to be in the best it can for most of the time. That's what work-life balance is. Some of us love working, why would we not want to, and how would we say work's not life? It doesn't even make sense. The truth is, it's to do it in such a way that doesn't stress you out, that you keep in control, you feel in control, you feel calm about things, and we all have that capacity. So yeah, you have to do it strategically, and it's not going to do it for you because everyone else around you is running like a chicken without a head on, and that's the truth. So the thing is, we think it's normal to be in a state of chaos, when truthfully it's not. And we don't function very well in states of chaos, by the way. No, nothing on the universe, universal law is order. We don't function well. Entrepreneurs love to use the term organized chaos, and I laugh at that. I'm like, it's the polar opposites. Organized chaos cannot exist. It's like, it's just two eyes, like black and white. You can't have them, like, it doesn't make any sense. There's no such thing. Chaos means disorder. How could you have ordered disorder? It doesn't make any sense. So the truth is, it's our job, and it differs whether you're a full-time mom, whether you're running a business, whether you're a teenager trying to cope with school and friendship, whether your social life is a major functioner, whether your work life is, whether you've got a massive dream. It doesn't matter. None of that matters. What matters is your ability to manage your mind, your space, and where you are in order to be the best and most productive that you can be.
Oh, I love it. And the next time I'm going to speak to you is when you're back from holiday and you are feeling refreshed and you're feeling good. And then I'm going to be like, Brian, I need to go.
I'm like, Candace, why are you here? I'm off. Yeah. But it'll be interesting, actually. Let's make sure we do a session just after I'm back.
Oh, we will.
Let's see if I've recovered enough. Otherwise, I might just use it as an excuse. Like, no, I did my Vision Corner session with Candace, and it became very apparent I haven't had enough of a break. So I'm off to Europe now for another 2 weeks. I'll see you guys later.
Oh my gosh. Have a wonderful holiday, Brian, and we'll see you when you're back.
Thanks, Candace. Thanks, everyone. Ciao.